I think we're recording. Okay. So welcome to our fabulous Get Your Wiggles Out webinar. So that's what we're here to do today, is to get our wiggles out and learn some strategies to help your students get their wiggles out. So Sherry is an expert on this subject. She presented this past summer, well,
September, right?
At the Festival of Families, and she got to talk to a lot of parents about getting the wiggles out. So our opening code, Sherry, what is our opening code today?
Our opening code is HYPER, H-Y-P-E-R, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. What does hypersensitive mean?
Excellent. All right, well, Sherry, take it away.
Okay. I don't know who signed in. I haven't seen a list, but I hope you all benefit from this, and I hope you come away with some tips to help you when your students and your students' parents. I'm Sherry Davis. I've been a vision teacher for a long time, but I started out as a parent first. I have an adult son who now is almost 31, born with Leber's congenital amaurosis, and then had lots and lots of sensory issues as a toddler and a very young little boy, and was eventually diagnosed with Asperger's at 9. So then I understood why he had all these sensory issues. I am not an OT. I want that to be clear. I'm a vision teacher who just happened to have a child with some sensory issues, and then I also started out as an ASD classroom teacher. ASD or students with autism spectrum disorder. So I did a self-contained elementary class and self-contained high school. And of course, if you're familiar with autism, you know that there are lots of hyper and hyposensitive students. That's one of the kind of cornerstones of autism. So with that blend and my vision background, I've come to see the importance of getting our kids calmed or alerted to be ready to be in a classroom, okay? I learned about sensory integration at the Maryland School for the Blind. That's where my son went to school after he was finished with his PIVI teacher, his parent-infant vision teacher that came to our house. At 2, he started at the Maryland School for the Blind. And that was back in the early 90s, and sensory integration was just kind of becoming the term. It was kind of the in term. We were finally learning about how the brain integrated, you know, everything that we experience, and why some students really had trouble with that and really couldn't kind of function in their home setting and in their school setting. So we're going to learn a lot about that today, I hope. So Andrea will relay to me, but who has had a student with sensory issues in their careers, in their experience?
You can type in the chat box. Oh, we got a me.
Yeah, I'm sure lots of people, and you may not have, you know, understood at one point in your careers, maybe when you're starting, what is going on with the student? Why can't they sit still? Why are they continually spinning? Why are they, you know, why are they trying to be upside down all the time? Or why are they afraid to, you know, have their feet leave the ground? Or why can't they tolerate the tag in that shirt? So that's what we're going to talk about today, and how to help those students. Okay, so again, our opening code is HYPER, H-Y-P-E-R. All right, so what is sensory integration? Okay, probably what you think. You can see in my little pictures here, I have an ear, a nose, a mouth, and hands touching something. So that's all of our senses, right? We use our hearing, we use our sense of smell, our sense of taste, our sense of touch. This primarily affects our students with little to no vision. So usually if a student has low vision, they're a little bit more able to tolerate their environment and don't quite have these sensitivities in my experience. So let me know if you've experienced differently. So sensory integration is how the body and the brain processes, organizes, and integrates everything that we take in through our day, right? Right now I've got lights above me. I'm talking to a computer. I can't see anybody. I've got rain outside behind me. It's kind of like a new office for me, so not really, you know, familiar with this office. I'm sitting in a chair I don't usually sit in. So, you know, I have to kind of try to position myself. So I'm trying to integrate all that information and think and present this, this presentation to you guys, this webinar. But I'm able to do it because I can integrate everything that's around me, everything I'm hearing and smelling and tasting and feeling. And I can still keep myself in a calm state, even though I'm a little nervous, so, you know, presenting, but I can keep myself in a calm state. I can speak to you, and I can process, you know, the information that's important here. Okay, so let's go back a little bit and talk about hyper. So hyper is when everything that I just described in this room would be bombarding me. Okay, I can't tolerate the light. The rain is completely distracting me. Okay, I can't get comfortable in this chair. Think about students you've had that are just overwhelmed with everything around them, and there's no way that they can put their hands on a little pre-braille lesson or manipulate some counters, or even like be at a table, in a chair at a desk, you know, and be ready to hear information and learn, okay, because they're bombarded with what's around them. So those students are hypersensitive to their environment, okay? And then you have the opposite, hypo. Hypo is when students aren't getting enough input into their bodies and their brains to help them be calm, right? The ones that are hyper need to be calmed so they can attend. Those that are hypo need stimulation so they can be alerted and attend. So those are the kids that are spinning continuously, flapping, they're talking, they're singing to themselves, they might be rubbing their hands all over the place or touching everything that's around them. They're just trying to get input from their environment. They're not getting enough. So those are the hyposensitive kids, okay? So hyper feels like everything's bombarding you. You want to shut it all off. And hypo is, I can't get enough of it, right? I need more, okay, in order to be alert and ready and calm and ready to go in my classroom. So we're going to talk a lot today about a sensory diet, okay? And we call it a diet because these aren't behaviors that we want to stop. These are needed behaviors that the student has, but we need to feed them. We need to feed them in an appropriate way and in an appropriate place with appropriate tools so that they can come to a classroom and sit at a desk, interact with their peers, listen to a teacher, take in information, produce work, okay? So we're not trying to decrease these or eliminate these behaviors, okay? We're not trying to stop it. We want to feed the need, right? That's why it's called a diet, okay? So we're going to figure out how to feed these kids, okay? So visual impairment and sensory issues, right? When our kids are congenitally blind, and this happened to my son, he did not want to be on his stomach. He wanted to be flat on his back, right? The head not raised, every part of his body he could on the floor. So there was no motivation for him to lie on his stomach, no motivation for him to raise his head, nothing to look at, nothing to reach for, nothing to crawl towards. And this was back in the late 80s, early 90s, and we really didn't understand the importance of getting congenitally blind children to move, to crawl, right, to bear weight on their arms, which in turn gives you input into your hands, your wrist, your elbow, your shoulder, your neck, right, which makes you use your trunk, okay? All of that is needed for the student to have good stability, to understand their environment, okay, and to be ready to go to school. So the baby spends more time on their back, and this decreases all of those opportunities, right? They don't bear weight against gravity, they don't pivot and rotate their trunk, they don't weight shift, okay, when you're crawling, weight shifting from side to side, and they're not getting that stability into the shoulders through the crawling, through the weight bearing, okay, and that leads to a lot of issues, and we're going to talk about those. All right, so when a baby doesn't crawl or have tummy time, and that's a new term now, tummy time. Everyone hears about that. Okay, here's what the lack of this leads to. Okay, postural problems. All right, if you don't get input into your shoulders and your neck and your trunk, right, you might have a sway back, or you might hunch, my son has a very swayed back. And again, this was, you know, at the beginning of this information coming to light. So I wish I had known then what I know now. But we want the students to be able to hold themselves up, right? And that takes all trunk control. You can't hold yourself up in a chair if you don't have muscle control in your core, in your trunk, okay? It leads to low muscle tone, right? If we don't require them to bear weight on their hands, right? The hands and the muscles in the hands don't strengthen. You might see students that have a really, really low grip when they're holding a cane or a pre-cane, or if you're trying to get them to use utensils or tools, they just have really low floppy hands, right? Because they're not getting that input into their hands and fingers when they're crawling. Impaired input from the joints, okay? So again, if you don't get that stability and that weight bearing, then you really don't know how your arm connects to your shoulder or how your fingers connect to your hand, which connects to your wrist. So you're not really able to like control your body. Hyperextended or stacked or dropped head. My son has a hyperextended head. So he still today, even when I tell him the chin's got to come down when you talk to people, he wants to hold the head up and to the side. And this is his comfortable position, okay? So by crawling, and you know, you're weight bearing, and the head, you have to kind of hold the head and the neck stable when they're crawling, right? So that gives them input to the neck and strengthen the neck, okay? Or we see someone drop their head, they constantly have their head down, you're constantly telling them to look up when they're talking to you. So these are all results in unintended consequences, you might say, from not getting enough movement as an infant, a young, you know, baby, young child, okay? Like I said, my son never crawled, so, you know, like I said, I wish I'd known now, or wish I'd known then what I know now. Let's keep going. Weak abdominals, okay, like I said, you can't hold his core, can't sit up straight, which that affects bending, okay? Unstable shoulders, poor balance and flexibility, okay? An inability to shift weight back and forth, flexibility and just being able to reach down and tie their shoes. But then you might find hyperextendability, hyperflexibility, right? Where the hips are so open and flexible that the legs can go everywhere. And that's not good for the hips either. You don't want hyperflexibility in the hips. You want a nice forward movement gait. I got a treadmill for my son later as he was growing up. We got a treadmill for him, and just the muscle memory and the need to go forward. You can't spread your feet wide on a treadmill, right? Because you're going to fall off. So putting the speed at a point that's comfortable for him, but it made him walk forward and get that kind of that figure 8 hip rotation as we walk, right? We don't push our hips forward when we walk. You know, our hips are kind of going in a figure 8 motion, and that's what we want to see our kids do. And then we have, because of the hip issue, we get a blocked pelvis or an odd gait. I know a young lady that her hips are so locked that she is almost pushing her legs forward when she walks, right? And this affects her as a young woman. You know, she's an extremely intelligent young woman, but her gait and her walk gives that first impression that there might be something wrong cognitively. And it's definitely not the case. So we need to get these babies crawling and walking with a forward gait. We don't want that odd, you know, toddler, feet spread apart, toes out kind of gait. And then again, like I said, the treadmill is really helpful with that. Okay, so why do we have a lot of these blindisms? I found this study because a lot of our congenitally blind babies also have other disabilities in their lives. They spend a lot of time in the hospital, right? They might spend their first couple months in an incubator, or they might be, you know, bedridden, or they might be casted because they've had to have some kind of surgery. So because of this, they don't get the chance to move, right? They're not able to explore. They're kind of contained, so the body doesn't develop. So this study showed that 26 congenitally blind children, and out of those 26, 73 of them exhibited these behaviors. right? Hand flapping, we've all seen that, hand flapping, or excessive clapping, right? Just trying to get input into the body, right? Where are my hands in my body? What's happening with my hands? I don't know where they are in space when I'm not using them, so I've got to like move them to find them, okay? Head weaving, where am I in space? Where's my head? Am I up? Am I down? Body rocking back and forth. Again, that's a type of vestibular movement, trying to get input into the inner ear. Finger play. In front, there's a little bit of vision. You might see them just finger playing, and that's kind of going inward and self-stimming. Making sounds or singing to themselves. A lot of our little ones sing to themselves, and even when they're in like a classroom setting or when someone's trying to talk with them, right? Jumping up and down. Again, that's a type of vestibular input, seeking input in the inner ear in a different way. Opposite the rocking, back and forth is one type of vestibular input. Jumping up and down is another. Swaying or twisting or spinning, again, another type of input into the inner ear, trying to figure out what's going on, where's my body, what's happening around me. And eye poking, my son continues to eye poke as a young man, even though he knows, you know, how it's affected his eyes. But he knows socially sometimes, you know, he's able to know when to do it and when not to do it. So, but if you've got an eye poker, try to stop him. And then lying face down, just not wanting to have the body off of the ground, right? Just wanting to be prone or supine, have as much body as possible on the ground to feel safe, to feel grounded, right? When we're up, we're not grounded. Only the bottoms of our feet are touching the ground. And there's a lot of information you have to take in to know like how to stay up. Any questions so far? Am I talking too fast? Am I moving too fast? Just give me some input. Okay. So hyposensitivity, we talked about the hyposensitive child seeks input, right? Hypo, they're not getting enough, okay? They need more. So these are the kids that like to jump off high places, right? They might be, you know, climbing up on top of their desks and jumping off. They're trying to get input to the body. They land, they get all that input into their body. They might hug you too tightly, right? Or shake hands really hard, right? They're rolling all around the morning, you know, opening circle, you know, time on the carpet. They press down really hard on things. We've seen that with a lot of our you know, pre-Braille kids. You know, they're banging on that Brailler like there's no tomorrow. They're trying to get input into their hands. They're not quite sure where their hands are in space and how to modulate pressure. So those are the hyposensitive kids. Then we've got hypersensitivity. Again, those are the kids that avoid input, right? I'm already bombarded. Don't give me any more, right? Those are the kids that have issues with tags, right? So cut the tags off. Tell parents, cut the tags off. Okay, we can readjust later in life, okay? Make sure you get socks that don't have the real thick seam in them. You ever had, I'm sure many of you have had kids that the shoes and the socks come off all the time, right? Maybe they can't tolerate the tightness of the shoe around their foot, right? Or the tightness of the sock. Yeah.
Definitely have kids in both categories.
Yes.
Sure have students like this. That's what they're saying.
Okay. Yes. Kids who resist hugs, right? My son was never a big hugger, right? He felt deep pressure was painful to him. Everything had to be light, right? Now, some kids that would drive them crazy, just a light little touch on the arm. They want to be squeezed and massaged. And some are like, you know, too tight, too much, you know, so you give them a soft little high five as a you know, a reward or a greeting. Okay. This is my son completely. Resist haircuts. For the first probably 7 years of his life, I probably went through 20 hair stylists, or, you know, like salons or great clips, or because every time we went to get a haircut, and I would let him know that the haircut was coming, but he said the haircut hurt. He could feel the hairs being cut, and he would scream through the whole haircut. And some stylists were understanding and they'd work with me, and some had no ability to understand and thought he was a horrible child and I was a horrible mother. I try to get the last haircut of the night so that, you know, the salon would be empty. So be aware of this, and, you know, you may have to prepare the scalp before the haircut, right? You may have to get a little hand massager or just your fingers. Simulate the scalp beforehand softly so they understand the sensation that's coming for the haircut. That was a huge issue in my life when my son was little.
We have a question.
Oh, okay.
Same question from 2 attendees.
Uh-huh.
Can they be both at the same time? Is it pretty common for kiddos to be a combination of both?
Yes.
For example, pounds on a brailer and seat deep pressure,
Right.
very annoyed by shirts, tags, shoelaces, or people making noises near them.
Yes. Yes, you can be both. And because remember, we have all the different modalities, right? We've got our hearing, we've got our smell, we've got our taste, we've got our touch. Yep. So my son was actually, he was physically hyposensitive. He wanted his body upside down and moving all around. He would flip down and whip his head up to the point where I thought he was going to, you know, break his neck. But then at birthday parties when he was a toddler, we could never sing happy birthday because he'd hold his ears. He didn't like the clapping afterward or the cheering afterward. So he was hypersensitive to sound, right? I had to warn him when I was going to use the can opener. I had to warn him, put him in another room when I was going to vacuum. But physically, he wanted to touch everything and he wanted to move his body in all kinds of directions because he had no idea where he was in space. So yes, you can be hypersensitive and hyposensitive at the same time. I would think not in the same modality, but you know, everybody surprises you. So I'm sure there's a kid out there that might be hyposensitive to one specific thing for smells and hypersensitive to another specific things for smells. Good question. All right, kids who won't tolerate Band-Aids, right? I have a high school student who was like that. Would not tolerate the Band-Aid anywhere. We had to come up with a reward system because he had a major cut on his finger, a reward system to keep the Band-Aid on for so many hours of the day. So that's a hard one to replace, right? Because when you have a cut that's that bad and you have to cover it, you know, there may be something they make out there that maybe doesn't stick to the skin. It's probably the stickiness and the feeling that the skin is being pulled that bothers those hypersensitive kids. Weighted vests at the dental appointments, right? I mean, if you have some hypersensitivity to your mouth, you can't take food textures, right? You only want certain, you know, like soft, smooth foods. Can you imagine having a dentist poking and prodding in your mouth with those sharp little tools that they, you know, and then having those things that go in your mouth to take x-rays? So you're going to have to do some kind of calming, use a weighted vest at a dental appointment. A weighted vest is actually just a cloth vest. How many of you have seen a weighted vest before? Let Andrea know. But it's just a cloth vest that has these little built-in pockets, and you need to work with an OT to determine how much weight. It's not make it the heaviest you can. There's a proportion between the weight and the child and the weight of the child. So that's an OT question. But using a weighted vest at a dental appointment is calming, right? It gives you that pressure, so that can help calm a student or a child. Okay. If they're hypersensitive tactually, right, and they have to finger paint, lots of finger painting and sticky things in kindergarten and pre-K, right? Put things in a baggie and have them move it around within the baggie, right? They're getting the sensation, they're getting the movement, but they're not feeling the cold stickiness on their fingers. So that's a little strategy for that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about things you can do for the different types of sensory diets that we're going to talk about. So you see my little x-ray of the shoulder, right? Proprioceptive input. And these are for hyposensitive kids, so kids who want input, okay? The videos I'm showing you today are for a student who is hyposensitive. He needed a lot of input, and you'll see that in the videos. So proprioceptive input is when you give input to the joints of the body. And again, on the video, you'll see how I do, we call them hugs, wrist hugs and elbow hugs and shoulder hugs, but I'm actually making him aware of the two joints by pushing them together, okay? So input into the muscles and joints. We compress the joints of the wrist, elbow, shoulder, and finger joints together to kind of get awareness into the body. And the fingers is really important for our kids, our braille writers and readers, because if you don't have tone in your fingers, right, if you can't do the curvature, and you don't have enough pressure to push down on a brailler, or you're pushing down too hard and you're poking holes through your paper, you need to be able to regulate your hands for the braille reading. So the activities that you can do is squeeze and release. You'll see that in the video. We roll it back on a ball. I'm talking about the big physio balls that you use in, like, at the gym. We do belly on the ball, rolling forward, and we do joint compression, which is what I just described when we're like pushing the muscle, the joints of the fingers, the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder together. All right, so let's watch our first video. I think this one is about 12 minutes long, okay? This is a young man that I worked with for, gosh, probably 3.5 years, started in pre-K in what used to be called the ELP program, now it's the PEEPS. And then I had him through 2 years of kindergarten. So he was a whirlwind, could not sit still, could not sit on the carpet. And so I figured, we need to kind of concentrate on getting his body ready to be in school. I knew kindergarten was coming, so this was an everyday activity. It's a diet. And in the beginning, it was twice a day. And I had this little closet in this school. It was actually a closet that I kind of, you can see, I made it into like a little classroom. I bought a carpet. I had, a little table for us to work and do braille assignments. You'll see the little spinner there, the little wooden circle thing. So I made it as inviting as I could, and we went there every day, and we did the sensory diet. So let's watch, okay? Think of your questions as you're watching, and then when it's done, we can, we'll reconnect. Bowls from one side, one bowl to the other. Okay, we have to hold ourselves up. And move the tray a little bit closer to us. Hold on. Okay, so hold yourself up with your left hand. Lock your elbow. Lock that elbow, Chris. Lock that elbow. Trying to get him to do in the wheelbarrow. If he doesn't lock it, he's not doing wheelbarrows next. Can they hear me? Come on over. I like how you have a flat hand. Move them all over from the right bowl to the left bowl. These marbles are moving around a lot, aren't they? They make nice loud noises too. I did in the past. I always consulted an OT. Did you get them all? Good job. Yeah, when I started this, now we have to move them back. I consulted with an OT that I trusted. Lift yourself up with our right arm. Lock your elbow, just like you do with the wheelbarrow. Hold yourself up. I'm going to count each one. 2, 3, because you brought more over. 4, 5. Now that's where I got a lot of my resources, the sensory checklist. 6, 7, 8. Oh, geez. 9, 10. Did you bring them all over? Okay. All right, we're going to come back up to our feet.
Can I pour some cereal like I did?
Mm-hmm.
Can I pour?
You want to pour some cereal for a minute?
Yeah. Okay.
And then we're going to do wheelbarrow, and then we're going to do squeeze and release.
What a bag at? What a bag?
What bag?
With the marbles in it. I need some more marbles.
Now that's enough marbles. You have 10. Where are the 2 bowls?
Am I here?
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh, some marbles fell out. Where's number 9 and number 10? Marble. Can you find number 9 and number 10 marble? Feel your tray. Are all the marbles in the bowl?
No.
Gentle hands. Slow, gentle hands. There's 1. Put it in the bowl. There's 9. Where's number 10?
We done with the marbles?
Check your tray. Go all the way up to that upper left corner. Reach all the way across. There you go. I thought you wanted to pour. Show me how we pour. You're a good pourer. Right bowl to the left bowl.
My mama don't.
Let's use our left hand to pour it back into the right.
Don't let me put my cereal by myself.
Well, sometimes we need help with the big box. Because there's a lot of cereal in those boxes. I can see where Mama. I used to help my kids pour the cereal. I like how you're pouring with your left hand into the right bowl. From the right hand into the left bowl. And from the left bowl into the right bowl. Good job. All right, let's stack the bowls. Let me get my tray. Can you bring the bowls up to my shelf here? Can you stand up without spilling any of the marbles? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I think a marble fell. Good, not spilling. Put it on my yellow tray. Okay, quiet hands. We're going to do that in a little bit. Let's do some wheelbarrow.
Harmonica. Into the waist.
Whoop, I have to let me sit down behind you first so I can Ready, support your bend at the legs. waist. You need a routine. All right, that's right. Where did we bend from?
Down to the waist.
We bend from the waist and put our hands on the, okay.
On my legs.
And I hold your knees and you lock your elbows and we're going to count to 20.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
We're getting all that weight bearing. See, into the arms, to the shoulders. He's got to work his core. I'm trying to keep his little body up. Good job. We're naming all the body parts. 17 or 16 there. Talking about right and left. Good job. Do you want to do that again?
No.
Let's take a breath. What'd you say? All right, let's do it one more time. We'll just count to 10. Okay? We'll do a quick one. Bend at the waist. Hold your hands on the floor. Lock your elbows, and your elbows are straight. Elbows are straight. Hands are flat. Good. Hands are under your body. Uh-oh, that's not going to work. Our wheelbarrow is going to fall. All right, count to 10.
1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Good job, Chris. All right. Let's do some squeeze and release. Sit on the floor. Let me put my chair away.
I want to do that. After we do the squeeze and release the harmonica, can we do the lacing shapes?
Can you sit on the floor? We'll do lacing shapes after lunch, okay? So sit on the floor in front of me so your back is to me.
I want to do the lacing shape before the harmonica.
No, lacing shapes will be after lunch. But we'll do the harmonica today. Okay?
And the
Hug yourself.
And the toothbrush.
Hug yourself.
And the toothbrush.
What do we say? What?
And the toothbrush.
And the toothbrush.
That's after lunch.
Hug yourself.
The toothbrush after lunch.
Can you hug yourself? Hug your shoulders. Where are your shoulders?
We're gonna do the toothbrush before lunch.
We're going to do toothbrush today while we're in here, okay? All right. Gotta keep
Before
your
lunch.
hands on your shoulders. Say, I love me.
I love me, and I love my yes.
Squeeze. He's getting all that input to his body. Hug your shoulders. Say, I love me.
Okay.
It's like a nice papoose, I love right? me. Squeeze. Little burrito.
I love it.
And release. Ready for another one?
Yes.
Raise your shoulders. Give yourself a hug.
Squeeze me. Can you pick me up and squeeze me?
This is how we do squeeze and release. Ready? Squeeze.
And I'm literally squeezing him with my knees.
Say, I love me.
I love it.
Good workout for me.
Say, I love mommy.
I love mommy.
Oh, give yourself a hug. Where are your shoulders?
I love mommy. And I love Auntie Brie.
Yeah.
What did she do?
Release. Release. One more time. One more squeeze.
Yes.
Okay, ready? Squeeze. Give yourself a hug. Hug your arms.
I love mommy.
I love me.
I
love school.
love the buggy.
You love the buggy
Yeah.
in Walmart.
Yeah.
You love chips.
Yeah.
You love chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
That was his nickname, Chicken Nugget.
You don't like broccoli? I like broccoli. I had broccoli last night.
I ate broccoli at Sugar House and I loved it.
Okay, now we're gonna do our shoulder hugs and elbow hugs.
So this is the joint compression.
What is this called?
Don't do the fingers because the fingers.
Don't do the fingers?
No,
What is this called right here?
left shoulder, right shoulder.
That's your right shoulder. Good job. Count with me. Oh. I like how you said excuse me. That was a good manners. Ready?
Social skills there.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Good job. And what is this called?
Elbow.
Good job, Chris. I like how you were thinking. You were using your brain and you're thinking. Your right elbow. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Literally just I'm moving the joints together.
Nope, she didn't break her elbow. She broke this part that
Come
we're going to do
together.
now. What is this called?
You can see how floppy he is.
Wrist. She broke her wrist. Ready? 1,
How'd that
2,
happen?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
She's
We talked about it. She was going up some what?
upstairs
Yeah,
and she had missed a step.
and she missed a step. Or what do we call this?
She tried to catch herself and she had failed.
So what do we call this? We do this in class when we want to do a agree or disagree. What is this called? A what? A what up?
Thumb,
Thumbs.
up and down.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And she
And what
went
is
to
this
the doctor.
called? Chris, we're talking about our fingers right now. This one's your
Pointer.
pointer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
You're getting
This
counted.
is the
On correspondence.
begins with the sound. Which one?
Middle.
Middle. 1, 2, 3,
I wanna
4,
drink
5,
water.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I'm hungry.
And what finger is this? Begins with an R sound.
Ring.
Ring. 1, 2,
for your
3,
watch.
4, 5, 6,
What
7,
time is it?
8, 9, 10.
What time
And
is
this is the little baby finger. Begins with a P. What is it called?
it? Pinky.
Pinky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so that's our right side. Now we have to do our left side.
The baby finger.
You ready?
It's the baby finger.
It is. What is this called?
Pinky, 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 pinky.
What is this called?
Left shoulder.
Left shoulder. I like how you're using right and left today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you're right, we're going to do this part next.
She was going downstairs to her
What is
living
this
room.
called?
His teacher had broken her wrist
Squeezing it. What is that
a
called?
day or so before, and he was fascinated with her
No, you
cat.
just did your shoulder. Your shoulder's up here.
So he wanted to keep talking about
What is
that.
this called?
What happened to her?
You got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Hold up. Miss Owens was going downstairs to her living room.
She was going, I don't know where she was going. She just said she was going up some steps and she tripped and fell. All right, and she broke what? What part was this? What part was this?
Wrist.
Wrist. 1, 2, 3,
They
4,
were
5,
carpet
6,
stairs?
7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know, Chris, because I don't live in her house, so I don't know all these things. What is this called? We use it in class when we agree or when we disagree.
Thumb.
Thumb.
Or upper
1,
thumb.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is our,
Basically, all these.
this is the finger we use to make A. What do we use to make an A on the
One
brailler?
dot.
1 dot, we use our, what finger? Not our pinky. Pointer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
If we
7,
use
8,
all
9,
our
10.
braille fingers, that's braille cell.
We use this one when we make a B. We use the pointer and this one. This is called a,
That's all braille cell.
called your
Middle.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the, it's with an R.
Ring.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the last little baby finger,
Pinky.
pinky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, some down.
All right, any questions about any of that before we move on?
I'll give people a few minutes to type if they are. But I had a question.
Sure.
So these activities, would you do them before you would get into a Braille lesson, or?
Yes. Yep, this was the first thing we did every morning. When he arrived to school, after he came from the cafeteria into the classroom, before circle time in the classroom. If he got there early, I grabbed him early, and we went over that our little room here to start the day. So if he was going to go back into the classroom after this, then he'd be ready for like the carpet time to do like an opening lesson on the carpet where they talked about date and, you know, months of the year and letter sounds. Or we would go right to that table you see behind me, and we would start a Braille lesson. Or we would start a technology lesson. He was learning how to use the cartridge reader from Talking Book Library, you know. So whatever we did, we started with this, because if not, he could not sit still. You know, you can hear he's excessively talking. So definitely to start the day, every day.
Cool, thanks for sharing that. Some comments here. So very important to work with OT early on, sharing the skills that students will need to acquire, such as reading and writing Braille.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's wonderful to see how much is accomplished with this child in a short amount of time.
Right.
Then,
yeah, it's a quick, you know, you can see it's a quick down and dirty. We're moving right through. That was 12 minutes, and we got, you know, we got vestibular on the ball. We got pressure to his joints, or not vestibular, I'm sorry. We got some joint compression, and we got the proprioceptive into his shoulder laying on the ball. We're going to see some vestibular next, okay, and that's the inner ear processing. So any other questions? We'll move on.
Yes. If there was a day where a child does not want to do one of the specific activities, did you have additional options, or was it more important to do these specific tasks?
You know, in my experience, I don't think I've ever had a child that was resistant to one of the activities. If maybe one day he was a little bit more sensitive to the joint compression and would kind of go, ooh, you know, then I would lighten up a little bit. And I would always tell my students, I would explain, you know, what more and less mean, or harder or softer. We worked on those concepts. So if I was doing pressure to the ball on a back, I've done with some students, I didn't do it with this young man. I would say, you've got to tell me, do you want more or less, harder or softer, lighter, heavier? We talked about all those, because we feel different every day, right? Some days we're a little bit wackier than others. So I want the students to know that they can tell me at any time, that's too much, that's not enough, I need more. So, but I haven't had a student who was like totally resisted one specific part of this diet and had to find a replacement. Any more questions?
That's it for now.
Okay, let's go on. Let's go on to vestibular, okay? Vestibular is all inner ear. You see the picture I have above there of the kids on the hippity hop, right? Kids love to bounce, right? To swing back and forth, to spin. So that's all inner ear processing, and that all affects our movement, our balance, right? It regulates feelings of motion, right? Like, am I moving forward, backwards, side to side, right? Where's my head in space right now? Do I need to recorrect myself? Am I about to fall? So balance, how we start something, how we stop our body, what direction are we going in, right? Rhythm, right? And that's important with O&M, right? If you want to get a constant touch technique and you want to kind of time that with your steps and have a rhythm with the walking, right? You've got to be able to kind of get your body in motion. Okay, so that's called vestibular, okay? All inner ear, okay? So hypersensitive kids, right? The kids that are bombarded, don't want anything else. They don't like to swing. They're fearful of movement and having their feet off the ground, right? They don't like to go up and down stairs. They're fearful of being upside down. Those are the kids that just, they're already, you know, they're already overloaded with everything that's going on around them. Don't move them anymore, okay? And this is just as, you know, concerning, because you have to move your body in order to, you know, to be part of our, you know, our world. You got to walk in school. You've got to be able to get up and down chairs. You want to be able to play on the playground. Okay, these are probably the more challenging kids, I would think, because you can feed what kids want, but how do you like undo, or how do you decrease the hypersensitivity? And that's through a lot of calming activities, weighted vests, weighted blankets, pressure on the body, to kind of like calm them a little bit, but probably the most challenging. Right? Hyposensitive kids that need more, they're the ones spinning on the carpet, jumping up and down, they're swinging on everything they can find, they love to be upside down, okay? Notes on swinging, so two different types of swinging, right? We have the back and forth swinging in a swing set, and in my opinion, that was the worst thing in the world when schools got rid of swings and seesaws on playgrounds. When I was growing up, you know, everyone clamored for the swings. And then the seesaws where, you know, one side went up and one side went down. I don't know if anybody young remembers that. But swing sets, okay, take you back and forth, and that's a calming activity for the hypersensitive child, okay? Whereas a tire swing or something that spins, or like you sit on a swing set and you like spin the chain, you know, and then you let it go and you unspin, right? That's alerting for the hyposensitive child. So rotary is alerting, and back and forth or linear swinging is calming. So keep that in mind if you have a swing set available to you, or some schools let you hang like an indoor swing from the ceiling. If you're going to use that in a classroom, or you're in a classroom where that's available, remember the two types of swinging. Do you want to calm the child, or do you want to alert the child? Okay. Okay, so activities for vestibular activation, right? So sit and spins, you're going to see that in the video that I'm going to show next. Bouncing on a ball, swinging, like we just said, either in a linear motion or a rotary motion, depending on the child. I use a big physio ball, and he lays on his belly on the ball, and we go back and forth, so he's getting vestibular information going down and up. And then you saw the wheelbarrow walk, right? Even though he's working on proprioceptive input into the shoulder, his head is still, you know, not upright. So he's getting some input into the ear that way. So I think we have a video next, okay? This one is about 14 minutes long, okay? You'll see in this, we're going to work on directionality. We're going to work on speed concepts, fast and slow. I think in this one, we're doing the ball, and we're going to work on calendar skills, days of the week, months of the year. So I'm trying to incorporate like a little mini circle time while we're doing this. So it's serving a purpose. You know, I'm calming him and getting him ready for the day, but I'm also working on all those concepts that, as a micro-preemie and a kid that's going to need some more time to take in all those concepts, he's getting some extra instruction. Okay.
A little bit more to the middle. Good job, Chris. Ooh, we're going to bring a little bit toward the wall. There we go. Okay, so we're in the middle of the carpet.
I'm gonna go to Walmart.
All right. You spinning your way to Walmart?
Yeah.
Good job, Chris.
Didn't spin in the car. That's okay.
I didn't go to other store. I'm gonna go today.
You didn't go the other day, so you're going to go today? Yeah.
I follow my mom to Walmart because that's where my mom goes to Walmart.
We're putting on our timer for our spinner.
I'm gonna go to Walmart because I better have the timer when I leave. So Walmart. I'm gonna change that timer. If I don't hit that timer, I'm gonna keep telling you people.
I'm going to pause for a minute. So I want you to notice as he's spinning around, notice how he keeps turning his head to the side. He's trying to get some input there. That's also vestibular. He's not keeping his head up. He's moving his head to one side or the other. And again, so he's trying to see where his head is, trying to get a little more input than just the spinning, okay?
To the left, to the left, to the left, left, left. Ooh, to the... Which way are you going now? Slowly to the right, to the right, 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 to the right, to the right, to the right, right, right.
To the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, right.
Because when we go to Walmart, we have to make right turns and left turns, right? Yeah. When we go in a car, we make right turns and left turns on different streets.
We go to Walmart.
That's how you're going to the right. Can you put 2 hands on the wheel?
What's that baby calling the police on me?
Can we go to the left now? To the left. To the left. To the left. Ooh, fast to the left. Crisscross applesauce. Show me crisscross applesauce. There we go. Good job, Chris. Oh, slow to the right, fast to the right. To the right, to the right, to the right, right.
To the right, to the right, to the left, to the left, to the right.
Oh, now which way are you going? To the left.
Let's get that baby calling the police on me.
So what are you going to get at Walmart? Chips. You're always getting chips.
I love you.
Tell me something. Tell me a fruit or a vegetable you're going to buy. Pineapple.
And Twinkies.
Twinkies aren't a fruit or vegetable. Twinkies are good, but they're not a fruit or vegetable. But a pineapple is a fruit. A pineapple is a fruit.
A Twinkie is a cake.
A Twinkie is a cake. It's a special sweet treat that we only eat once in a while. Can you sit crisscross applesauce for me on your spinner?
I ate that for breakfast.
Show me crisscross applesauce. There we go.
I eat that for breakfast.
I hear the timer. What does that mean? Does my timer mean to go fast, or does it mean to spinning time is over?
To go fast.
Oh, is that a green behavior?
No.
Tell me what a green behavior looks like when you hear the timer. What does the timer mean? Good job, Chris. That's green behavior. That's following directions. Following directions. All right, can you push the spinner back into the corner where we keep it? I liked how you spin fast and slow. Or spun fast and slow. Push it back into the corner now. All right, you ready for the ball? Babysit my ball. Take it onto the carpet. Let me get my chair.
Right, giving him responsibility for this, right? Getting the spinner, pushing the spinner back, right? He's involved in all of it.
You ready to bounce?
Yes.
Yeah. What does my ball have on it?
Spiky.
It's spiky. It's bumpy, isn't it? Feel the bumps? Are you ready to sit and bounce? Show me how you bounce by yourself, and then I can help you bounce with your feet on the floor. Ready? Let's sing our Days of the Week song with a nice big boy voice. Nice big boy voice. Days of the week.
It's all over the place.
I can bounce higher.
I want you to sing the Days of the Week song. I want you to keep a safe body while you're bouncing. I want you to keep a safe body while you're bouncing. So your feet should be on the floor. Let's sing the Days of the Week song while you bounce by yourself. And you're working your body by yourself. Keep going.
It's hard to bounce.
It works your body, doesn't it? You have to keep your balance and keep yourself safe and upright.
If I don't keep myself safe in the car, what to do?
Let's try that again. Days of the week. 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 There's Sunday and there's Monday.
There's Tuesday and
There's Wednesday. There's Thursday and there's Friday. And then there's Saturday. Days of the week. 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 Good job. So what is today? Remember, we didn't have school yesterday, even though it was a school day. So this week's gonna be a little bit more challenging.
Tuesday.
Yes, right, good
After
job.
Tuesday is Wednesday.
Kiss your brain.
After Wednesday is Thursday.
That's right, good job.
After Thursday is
Kiss your
Friday.
brain.
After Friday is Saturday.
You gonna kiss your brain for
After
me?
Saturday is Sunday.
You got it. I like how
After
you're using the
Sunday is
word.
Monday.
I like how you're using the word after.
After Monday is Tuesday.
You got it, dude.
After Monday
So
is
what was
Wednesday.
yesterday? If today is Tuesday, yesterday was. Today is Tuesday.
Monday.
That's right. And what will tomorrow be? If today is Tuesday, tomorrow will be.
Wednesday.
You got it.
My auntie Bea baby get out on Wednesday.
Okay.
She get out. She was
good
in the
news.
hospital
I know.
because they had
All right, now I'm gonna help you bounce.
they had to put
I'm gonna help you bounce now, okay?
a finger to in her nose.
Can we sing the
Let's
months
do
of the
my
year
nose.
song? Let's sing the months of the year song.
January, February.
And what month are we in now? No, we're not in January. That's how we start our song. We start our song with the month of January, but what month are we actually in now?
February.
You just had a birthday. What month is your birthday?
October.
So we're in the month of
October.
October.
That's my birthday.
You had a birthday this month on the 11th, right? Can we keep our feet still while we're bouncing? Keep our feet still while we're bouncing. We're bouncing up and down. Feet are still. Our choice is to stay on the ball and bounce up and down with our feet still, or we can get off the ball. What is your choice? Still bounce on the ball?
Yes.
With what kind of feet?
Quiet.
Quiet feet. Good. Okay. So we're going up and down with quiet feet.
Not cute.
So you had a birthday this month. So what month are we in?
October.
October.
11.
Your birthday was on October 11th, but today is October the 22nd. 22
When we go on that
days.
field trip. When we go on that field trip.
Oh, we'll have to wait till next month for the field trip. Okay, so we've been in the month of October for 22 days. Can you count to 22 for me? Count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Quiet feet, please.
6. That's what I do when I bounce. 7, 8, 9, 10,
It was a handful.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 22.
20. After 19 comes 20, and then we start with 20.
21,
And then
22.
you got it. So that's how many days we've been in October so far. So today is, let's say the date.
They still talk about 44.
Well, they were talking about that's how many days we've been in school all year.
44.
From when we started in August until today was 44 days. But in October, we've only been in the month of October for 22 days. So today is Tuesday, October 22nd. And what's the year? 2013. I think you need a little pressure on your feet today. Should we do a little jumping? I'm gonna hold your hands. And we're gonna do a little jumping. Because I see that you need some stuff, some input to your feet. There we go. Get all these wiggles out. Right, we're getting all our wiggles out now. So what can we do in the classroom?
Miss almost had broke her arm.
I know she broke her arm last week. Did she finally get it fixed?
How she did that?
I think she fell down. She had an accident and fell down. Can you jump?
But she fell down.
I think at her house. She was going up some steps, she told me, and she missed a step. And she went down and she tried to catch herself with her arm. And sometimes our arm bends a funny way.
And it broke.
Does that feel good jumping?
Yeah,
You seem to have a lot of wiggles in your feet today.
her arm broke all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like her hand.
She broke her wrist right here.
Right there.
Uh-huh.
And
I think that's where.
Her
No,
bone came out.
no, the bone did not come out of her skin, but inside the bone, kind of like when you take like a stick and you bend it and you hear that little and it breaks. sometimes that happens to the bone inside if we fall in a real hard way. So she went to a doctor, and they put a cast on it, and the bone will fix itself. It'll take time, but the bone will heal. Mm-hmm. Are you getting the wiggles out of your feet?
Yes.
You are wiggly today.
If she.
All right, now we're going to lay on the belly on our ball while we're talking, okay? We're going to roll on the ball. Get on our belly. Oh, I like how you take your glasses off. Want to hand them to me? Thank you for being safe with your glasses. Some bubble wrap to feel. Oh, can we have that nice voice? That nice, crisp voice that I like?
Okay.
All right.
Who grabbed?
I'm going to bounce you on your tummy. Up and down.
Tummy.
You can pop the bubble wrap with your fingers, or you can squish it in your hands.
Squish it.
You want to squish it?
Like Play-Doh.
The bubble wrap is to give him something that he's rolling towards, right? Some kind of goal, something interesting to hold his attention.
Can you make some pops when I roll you forward? Make a pop. Make a pop. There you go. Back. Make a pop.
He's upside down, he's getting that input.
I'm waiting. Make a pop. Make a pop. Make a pop. There you go.
Put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, touch it.
All right, come on up on your feet. Come on up on your feet. We're going to do the toothbrush in a little bit. I'm going to turn around.
Can I twist the bubble wrap?
We are going to get to that, yeah? Turn around. We're going to roll backwards on the ball, okay? Forward toward me. Lay back on your belly. I'm back on your back. We're going to go upside down. Reach your hands over. Upside down. You find that bubble wrap?
I go upside down.
Upside down is good for our head.
Yeah.
And your arms have to reach over your head. Can you make a pop? Can you make a pop while you're back there? I like how you're using your fingers. It's hard making pops that way, isn't it?
It's hard making pops that way.
It is. That's okay.
It's moving
It
away.
is moving around. You're finding it. You're finding it back there.
It's moving around.
It is moving around, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's do 2 more times and then we'll come up. I like how you're finding it. Ooh, you made a pop. Good job. All right, can you stand up? Push, use
My
your
belly
tummy.
is
Using the
big.
core
Use your
here,
tummy.
making him stand up.
Okay, now we'll stop there.
My mom said if my belly get big.
Okay, any questions about any of that?
We have a question of, would this be done as a TVI or an orientation and mobility specialist?
Ooh, well, I'm not dual certified, so, I mean, I would think if you worked with your O&M instructor, you know, I think that would be great. You know, PIVIs can do this. Just make sure you consult with the parent and the occupational therapist. You know your child if you're not real comfortable, you know, maybe have someone come in and demonstrate. I'm hoping these videos are really helpful. Yeah, but it's all positioning, right? Body positioning. So if you can tag team with an O&M, or if you're dual certified, definitely a crossover, right? Definitely a crossover, because body awareness is, you know, part of our TBI, you know, responsibilities. So
Yes, this is definitely a part of the expanded core curriculum. It's all compensatory.
right.
This is access, getting the student ready to learn. You're also working on body parts, spatial awareness, body awareness. There's so many skills
Yeah.
within these warm-up activities. Let's see.
And I think it's beneficial to work on those while he's moving, because remember, we're trying to, he's a hyposensitive student, so we're trying to calm him so he can take in all that information. So if he's calmed by the bouncing, right, can you imagine him in a circle time carpet trying to move around and calm himself while he's trying to do, you know, calendar with all the other kindergartners around? It's very disruptive to the teacher and the other students. So now we're feeding that need, it's the diet, and we're working on all those concepts that he's working on in the kindergarten class. So, you know, we're kind of tag teaming, you know, the instruction and the sensory diet. And he was probably one of the best kids in the class with calendar skills, I'm telling you.
Had it duly reinforced there.
Right.
So one question is, how would you provide the same sensory stimulation activities for an older student?
Okay, I actually did do this with a middle schooler, and I continued it into a high school setting with him. The ball, he was a very tall young man, so I brought in a rocking chair, like a comfortable one you would have in your home, an upholstered rocking chair. So instead of sitting on a ball and rocking, he rocked in the rocking chair, and it was also a swivel rocking chair. So he could like rotate back and forth if he wanted, like I am in my chair right now. He could rock back and forth depending on what he needed. And then I used the ball actually to do, instead of laying him over the ball since he was so large, I brought in a yoga mat, laid it out every morning. He laid down on the yoga mat, and I pressed the ball on his body. I would stand over him with the ball, and I would just lean my body weight on the ball, and I used this blue bumpy ball, and I would roll the ball up and down from the back of his head all the way down to his feet, and I would roll, and then I would push my way up the body, and I would ask him, you tell me, more or less, heavier or lighter, and depending on the day, you know, he would let me know. And then I also had him turn his head to each side, and then I gave him pressure to the ear. I put the ball on the side of the head, you know, and then I moderated my pressure, and I asked him to tell me, and I would press the ball into the side of his head and onto the ear, to get a little vestibular that way, the pressure in the ear. Okay, it's not movement, but it's still pressure. So I would do that on the back of his body, and then we would do joint compression, just like you saw me do with this young man. We would go from the shoulder all the way down to the fingers. And you know, he had bigger bodies, so it's a little harder to get a hold of the joints, especially the shoulders. But we did it, and starting in middle school, and he's still in high school, there was just a marked decrease in his rocking, in his jumping up and down. He would want to jump up and down, just, you know, standing there in the middle of a conversation. And we talked about social skills, right? Is this socially appropriate for a 16, 17, 18-year-old young man to be exhibiting these behaviors in a social situation? It's not. And I talked with him about it. And so I explained why we were doing these activities. This was to help you, you know, have your brain get the input that you need. That's why you rock. That's why you jump. We're going to do this to help you, you know, feed the body so that when you're in the classroom and in social situations, you're not doing those inappropriate behaviors. So yes, to answer your question, yes, it can be used for an older student. Again, getting parents involved, letting them know what you're doing, and then consult with an OT if you feel like you need to. OTs with sensory integration knowledge they're out there, but they're not everywhere. So just really be diligent in your county and see which OT seems to have a lot of information and seems to understand sensory integration and how it affects our students with low to no vision. Any other questions?
We have a comment. The only thing regarding an orientation and mobility specialist coming in is that they're not typically there every day, which is a very valid point, especially if students are in a resource setting.
Yes.
So it'd be good to tag team, but maybe better for a TBI with daily consistency. So thank you for bringing up that point, Christina.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, another question here.
No, go right
Is
ahead.
this something you would feel comfortable training a parent to do while at home? We have some people on here who are providing early intervention services.
Okay. Definitely. You model for them, let them talk, specifically talk about the pressure, discussing it with their, or depending on the age of their child, if they're getting services at home, I would imagine they're very, very young. So working with babies, right? Baby massage is more appropriate for an infant or a baby. Talking about the body parts, doing joint compression. There's also brushing, and that's something that you definitely want to work with an OT about, an occupational therapist, if there's a need for a brushing technique, and that kind of goes along with the proprioceptive joint compression. Definitely consult with an OT about the brushing. I did some brushing with a student one time, but I worked in conjunction with an occupational therapist. But definitely, yes, tell parents about the program, maybe the order of the activities. Timing, how often during the day, if the student is still at home, like a few minutes several times a day. Again, remember, it's called a diet. So we eat throughout the day. They need this throughout the day. It isn't one and done in the morning and they're good for the whole day. So, be aware of timing and what's needed to help them stay calm or alert throughout the day.
And I want to real quick jump in and typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anna or Amanda, there's typically a team of people serving early intervention or providing early intervention services in the home. So usually there is like an OT involved, a PT involved. Right. So it's critical to try and really push in to be a part of that team. Yes. And discuss these things and discuss these points. Yes, Amanda, I agree exactly. I think working with a specialist is key, and collaborating with the OT. And that's something we addressed in our past working with the experts in October. We had a joint meeting with occupational therapists and TBIs, and we discussed all the things that our students need to learn and how OTs can support them. Of course, this was the K through 12 aspect. So we're really looking to agencies pushing in and really training a lot of these early intervention teams, these early childhood providers about our students and their needs.
Andrea, if you look in that envelope where all the printed materials, there's a little booklet.
Yes.
So if you want to, I can pull that up to the camera. A specific booklet for OTs on working with students with visual impairments. And I provided this. It's a little outdated, the pictures and so I have to see if there's an updated edition. But there's a little booklet in there too. It's small. Bear with us here. Little booklet. Keep pulling all that out.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Tell me if I'm getting this up there. There you go. Okay. Right. Impact of vision loss on motor development. Information for occupational and physical therapists. Working with students. I'm trying to look at Andrea's computer. Working with students. Okay. So this is from Texas School for the Blind. Okay. So maybe go on their website and see if they have an updated version of this. I would give this to any student that I had. I had a physically impaired young man years and years ago, and I used this and I gave it to the occupational therapist because he also had CP on one side, limited use of one hand and one leg. So, but he was also, way overstimulated, hyposensitive, and needed a sensory diet. So we worked really closely together. I think she's the one that taught me, besides learning at School for the Blind when my son was little, she's the one that really kind of helped me develop this sensory diet, and which has been so beneficial to so many of my students. Does every student who's congenitally blind need a sensory diet? No. You have to look at each student, do an assessment, look at their behavior in situations, a classroom, and then kind of go from there. Maybe they just need one or two of these strategies. Maybe they need everything. So every student is different. So keep that in mind. So moving on, so vestibular systems also, this is why it's so important to get that movement up and down, back and forth, side to side, because it keeps the level of arousal balanced, right? It helps to either alert or calm, and that's what we need in the classroom, right? We need to be ready to take an instruction and learn. It gives perception of your space and orientation. Where is my body in space, right? Am I bending down now to pick up something that I dropped, right? And how do I get back up? How do, reaching down to get something out of the book bag. Where are my hands when I'm opening all those things for lunch, right? When I have all those containers in the cafeteria and I've got to open things up, right? Spacing out the tray. Where do I put my milk? Where do I put my applesauce? It increases the ability to process what's being heard and speech development, okay? That's something I learned a long time ago. Had no idea, right? So we want them to be ready to hear instruction, to participate, right? And it affects our emotionally based behavior. If you have students that like crumble at the simplest thing, right? Their shoe came untied or the barrette came out of their hair, right? And they just crumble at that. They're not able to like regulate their emotions. They're not able to like, understand the hierarchy of, how to handle certain situations, right? Or then you have there's students that fall down and cut their knee and they're like, oh, and they're up and running again, right? They didn't take in the pain, right? They didn't just take in the experience of falling down and really hurting themselves. They're bleeding, right? But they have no idea. They just get up and go. So those are kids that need more input to their body, okay? Let's see. I have notes here about rocking and swaying, bouncing in the desk chairs, very difficult to attend. We talked about that. Hypersensitive kids, like we talked about, they may be cranky, they may cry easily, complain of clothing during the day, and be generally miserable. If you have a student like that just never seems happy, is always complaining of something, hypersensitivity might be an issue. They just might be so bombarded by what's all around them and touching them and hear what they're hearing and what they're smelling and tasting that they just can't regulate themselves. So that's something you want to look at, some calming activities in the morning and then before lunch and maybe midday, and then teach parents to do at home also. Okay, heavy work. You saw him in the video before where I had him push the sit and spin back in the corner. That would be considered heavy work, right? Bearing weight against something, pushing and pulling against something. So it provides the longest sensory effect with combined benefits for proprioceptive and vestibular stimulation, right? Because when you're pushing something, you're kind of like bearing down, you get a little input to the ear, you're also getting all that input into your body, right? You gotta like bear down with your feet to be able to lean forward and push something. So you're getting all of that input into your body. So carrying heavy objects, having them open all, push and pull all the doors open. When you're working, when you're traveling around campus, pushing the grocery cart, tell parents to do that, pulling wagons with heavy things in them, right? Helping with vacuuming at home. That's all heavy work that's giving them input into their body. And I've got some video of heavy work. Okay. This one is about, I'm trying to check our time. This one is 5 minutes. So we're working on pushing and pulling against the TheraBand. Oops, sorry, this one. Instead of hitting play, I hit click. There we go.
And pushing, okay? Remember how we take turns? All right, who's going to go first before you pull?
See how he's a little
I'm going to go
disorganized.
first. That means your arms are straight. And then when it's your turn, you're going to bend your elbows and touch your shirt with the band. Okay?
No one holding it.
Well, you're right, there isn't anyone home. I was showing you how to use it. And then I'm going to grab it. Okay, are you ready? Let's show Miss Johnson. My turn. Oh, you stay on your bottom. Okay, my turn. Now your turn. Pull and touch your shirt.
We're giving him resistance.
Good job, Chris. My turn.
Your turn.
Let your arms go straight. Don't let you hold the band tight.
Floppy.
Your turn. Pull it back. Touch your shirt. Pull, pull, pull. Be strong. Good job. My turn. Your turn.
See how his hands get so loose.
Touch your shirt.
Low tone in his fingers.
Pull and touch your shirt. Good job, Chris. My turn. Your turn.
It's like an elevator.
Pull. Your turn. Touch your shirt.
An elevator takes you up and down.
Well, we're not going up and down. We're going close to our body and away from our body. Hold the band. It's my turn. I'm pulling it away from you. Now your turn. You pull it toward you. And touch your shirt with it. Pull. Pull. Use your muscles. My turn.
My muscles.
Let's do 2 more times.
One,
One more time to your shirt.
2.
Touch your shirt. There you go. You did it. Good job. Oh, I need to give you direction to stand up. Okay, let's squeeze some bubble wrap. You can be rough and squeeze and twist and pop.
This is just heavy work with the hands.
Where you can be
Not pushing, pulling, but we're
not gentle
squeezing.
hands. Only with the bubble wrap.
And just getting the input from the sound of the bubble wrap. And just experimenting, right? How does it get more pops? We'll hear them in a few minutes.
Let's be rough with it.
You can be rough with it. This is the only thing we can be rough with.
Not the lacing shakes.
Not the lacing shakes, not our brailer, not our braille paper, not our friends.
We can be rough on the playground with it.
You can run on the playground, but we can't be rough with our friends on the playground.
We can be rough.
Do you want to pop with your fingers? I can get you something hard to put under it, or do you want to squeeze and twist it? What would you like to do?
Squeeze and twist it.
Okay. If you want to pop it with your fingers, I can get you a board.
See how I'm always providing him with choices, right?
Here's some popping. There we go. That's what I like to see. Squeeze.
So he's tensing up his
Like
arms,
biting
his
on the toothbrush
shoulders,
when you squeeze with your hand.
getting all that input.
Get all tight and tense. And you can squeeze and twist. There you go. And feel how it makes your muscles in your arms all nice and tight and your shoulders. Do it again. Squeeze. Can you twist it too? Can you twist and make popping sounds? There you go. Oh, I like how you're tightening. That's how we should hold our cane, with a nice tight grip like that when we're using it.
Well, I have to have a cane.
That keeps you safe. It helps you to know what's in front of you so you don't bump into it with your body.
If I'm going to go with my body, what am I going to do?
Well, if you bump into something with your body, what happens? It hurts, doesn't it? It doesn't feel good. It hurts. So the cane is a way to keep you safe because you don't see always what's in front of you.
And you have to go to the hospital.
Well, not always, but sometimes. So I like how you're pinching and popping. Good job, Chris.
The finger separation, it's all pre-braille stuff, right? Finger separation, awareness of where his fingers are.
Pinch. There we go. Can you do some more twisting? Squeezing and twisting? It's knees into your elbow. You usually do a really good job with that. Oh, I like how you're finding the bubbles. Ooh, squeeze. Ooh, now try to twist it when it's smaller. Ooh. Did you hear all that? Listen. That's a lot of popping. You get more pops when you make it smaller and twist, don't you? Squeeze. Look at all that twisting and popping.
Can we do some more popping?
We'll do some more tomorrow.
You got three.
Would you like to do a little lacing?
All right, any questions with that?
I love the relation to orientation and mobility, holding the cane, using that solid grip, and then just the wrist rotation, so important for so many independent living skills, from opening doorknobs, twist, all the fine motor for twisty ties.
Doors.
Yep.
Absolutely. Supination of the wrist. A lot of our kids are so locked, right? They can't independently rotate different parts of the body. The arm is one big block. Right? So we really need them to understand that all these joints allow for movement, right? The pushing and pulling away from a body. How many of our kids never understand that they can reach out for something, right? When they take something, they hold their hand out like this. They don't understand that their arm extends from their body. So all these activities are, yeah, really great just for, you know, even if you don't have a kid that needs a sensory diet, but just, you know, reaching away from their body and doing activities that let them know what their body can do. All right, where am I? I know we're getting a little close on time. I'll show you this one real quick. This is just more heavy work. That's my big old bag. I have a computer in there, a couple of binders, folders, materials. It's heavy, and you can see how little he is. And he loved to pull my bag. We'll just do a few minutes of this. He's got to use the cane. He's got to,
Circle man.
he's got a plan.
Circle man keeps my bag safe. The cane on the floor. Good. Cross your body.
And he's got to regulate his balance. He's got something heavy in one hand and not in the other. See, I'll let him struggle it out the door.
Did it come out?
Yes.
Make sure it comes out.
Oh.
Make sure it's safe.
It don't close
What's in the way?
the bag.
The bag. So how can you get the bag out of the way?
All right. So many
You
concepts.
got it.
Why does that noise when I pull it and I push it up? Why make that noise?
Why does it make what noise?
I said it's
You just asked me a good question. Can you ask it again?
why make that noise when I pull it?
Stay on the right side of the phone. Stay on the right side. No, I'm sorry. Ask me your question again.
Why make that noise?
That's the wheels. The wheels, when you tilt it back up, the wheels are stopping real quickly. And so it's making that little squeaky noise when they stop quick. It hits the floor. Uh-oh, what happened?
It fell down. What is
Keep my
Consequence
safe,
of
please.
not
Those are all my
holding
white
something
papers
tight
to keep
enough.
me safe. You can't keep this job if you can't keep my bag safe. You don't want to lose your job. Squeeze your grip, please.
Oh, I think
Let's keep going while we're talking.
I
Stand across your body.
saw this bowling room. I saw this bowling room.
Okay.
I saw the room.
Oh, good. Okay.
She gave me that chocolate cake in my hand. I opened it up. My mom told me don't open it up, and I opened it up.
Oh, no. All right, we gotta work with this door. Push hard. Push with your muscles.
Got to make all that motor planning. How do I get the door open and pull that bag out? Just let them figure it out.
Think about the bag. It's wider than your body. There you go.
So you just pull it all the way to the top. Any questions about that? Okay. Oral heavy work, right? We did heavy work with our body. Now we're going to talk about oral heavy work, okay? Sucking on lollipops, chewing on gummy bears, right? If you want input to the teeth back and, you know, up and down and pressure, chewing on something really kind of like gummies. Licking popsicles if you want to get tongue extension, and that's all important for speech, right? Sound production. Crunching on nuts, and again, be aware of allergies, right? And tappy, right? If you have to hold something with your teeth and pull it out, right? You've got to get all that pressure in your mouth. I know a lot of our kids have they'll only eat, you know, yogurt and pudding, right? Because they don't want to do any work in their mouth, right? They don't want anything chewy or crunchy. My son was the opposite. He was so hyposensitive to the mouth that he would not eat anything like yogurt or pudding or applesauce. Everything had to be high crunch. And so we had to kind of work with him to get him to take something soft, you know, and then we would put crunchy things in soft things and, you know, little by little decrease the crunchy, you know, to kind of sensitive or for lack of a better word, I guess, desensitize him to the softness of a food. And, you know, we have to be able to have some kind of varied diet so you can eat healthily, right? And we have to be able to crunch and chew. Okay. Andrea, I'm a little close on time. I'm just about done. This is using a Nook toothbrush. Do I have time to show it, or should we move on?
Just a minute or so.
Okay, let's just do a minute here. So this is a Nook toothbrush. It's the little toothbrush with the nubbies, and I'm just going to give him input. Oops, that is our last slide. So I'm just going to give him input.
Okay, so now we're going to start some.
I let him open it,
Some
open the
mouth work.
baggie and
Open the
unwrap
baggie
it.
for me.
Again, taking responsibility for the materials and doing everything. So let's kind of, okay.
Right cheek.
So I do it first.
Open
I'm
up.
just stimulating his mouth. I'm doing, understanding the difference between cheek and gums.
Yeah, well, that's your cheek. I'm not touching your gums yet. I'm doing the cheek.
Okay.
This is your cheek.
So we do
The
one
gums are
side.
where your teeth grow out of. Right cheek. Now I'm going to come over to the left cheek. You keep your head down for me. Oh, don't bite yet. We'll
With
have
that
bite time in
extended
a
head,
minute.
right? Getting him to keep the chin down.
There was always going out.
Now I'm
And he
gonna
wants to
get
keep on talking through
oh,
it.
don't bite yet. Not time. I'm going to get the skin in the front of your mouth, between your teeth
I'm
and
going
your
to
lip.
fast forward a little bit.
Don't
So,
bite yet, Chris. I know you want to.
so I'm doing his
This part.
cheeks, and then I do his gums on both sides. We talk about, whoops, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Hold on.
Okay, so now we're going to start.
Right. And then I give him a chance, right? And I want him to find parts of his mouth, but then he gets a chance just to bite. All of that pressure in his jaw.
Josiah was
It's
using a
also-
toothbrush too.
It's also giving stimulation to that inner ear. When you bite down hard, it inputs into your head, which helps with where are we in states.
Show me how you bite.
When I think one tongue guy.
Can you show me how you bite?
He think he's tongue guy, so.
That's silly.
I'm gonna act the silly, so.
Okay.
We never share toothbrushes, right?
No.
No.
So talk about dental
Oh,
hygiene.
where'd it go?
Ah, yeah.
Good job.
But he
wiping
wipes it
down.
off, see?
You gonna chew some more?
Ooh, I'm off. There we go.
If I bite this one out.
So he just goes through, bites it, right? And then I'm giving him input to his jaw. And then I think we put him back. And then he gets to, is this the harmonica? He gets to play the harmonica. Okay? So stimulation to the lips. Not just inside the mouth, but the
She's watching
lips.
us. Show her some music.
Okay? Talk about high and low sounds.
Yes, Chris.
I am doing the harmonica.
Show her how we do high and low sounds with big breaths.
Do you have a
Nice
kid that
work.
plays with
Can you
his
do a low
food?
sound?
Do you have a student that plays with his food, right, when his mouth, or he's a really messy eater, he might not know where his mouth is, where his lips end, right? So stimulation to the lips. You know, we don't want them to like play with the applesauce on the spoon and eat it and spit it out because they're trying to get stimulation to the lips. Play with a harmonica at another time, and so that he understands where his lips are, understands how, you know, how to eat appropriately, and then so, which again directly affects, you know, your social skills, right? You don't want to eat and be a messy eater and not be able to use a napkin and understand what's going on in your mouth, and be social. Okay, so we have hypersensitivity, hyposensitivity. You've seen joint compression, you've seen inner ear stimulation, you've seen heavy work, how to get input to the body, and you've seen some oral work. So any final questions about any of this? Okay.
Just so everyone knows, I posted links to the PowerPoint, to a sensory checklist, and an article from Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired that Sherry has used as resources to create this PowerPoint. So check those out. One of the questions we have is, each morning, did you do a different set of activities with Chris?
No, we did them all.
About how long did that take you, like total?
Probably about 30 to 40 minutes.
Wow.
But just think of what you're gaining, right? Some teachers might say, well, you have them out of the classroom for 45 minutes, okay? But Do you want him in the classroom for those 45 minutes as a whirling dervish who can't sit down, who's disrupting everybody else, who can't take in information, who's not learning the concepts you're teaching, right? So it's an investment on his future, right? And I explain that. I give them information on sensory diet. I talk about why I'm doing it. So that's why we do all those calendar skills, you know, while we're doing it. So we're getting all that circle time, because that's kind of the first thing that happens in a kindergarten classroom, or most early education classrooms. So it is definitely worth the investment in time, because by the end of his first kindergarten year, beginning of his second kindergarten year, we saw marked improvement. And so then I was able to do it, you know, not twice a day, but once in the morning, right? And then I was able to do a little quicker version of it. Okay, so when you see carryover, you'll see carryover for a few minutes or maybe an hour or so in the beginning, right? And then what you want to see is carryover into the classroom for longer and longer periods of time. So you know your student, you be the judge, right? Can I decrease the number of times I do an activity? Can I eliminate an activity, right? But we still need to do this because he's still having issues with this area. You decide, and you be the kind of architect of that diet. Any other questions?
I got lots of thank yous.
It's been a pleasure, guys. I love, you can hear I'm very passionate about this topic. So it's really been a pleasure to share with all of you. I really hope you've seen some things that you can take back and really impact a student's life and make them a healthy, happy, confident kid.
Yes, absolutely. I really feel, I hear your passion and it shows through your work. And I think too that just so many of the things that you were doing while you're working on integrating all those senses, you're really working on a lot of concepts that just bleed into the expanded core curriculum. So absolutely. So please work with your OTs,
yes.
Work with your teams, because I know time is always an issue for itinerant teachers, and so you have teams at those schools, and we've been really pushing for more teamwork, bringing more people and professionals to the table for our students, because oftentimes visual impairment is not the only thing going on with our students. And so it's really, really important that we are addressing the whole child.
Yes.
And we often are the greatest advocate in that sense. So the more knowledge we have to share with the team, the better it's going to serve our students. All right.
If you want to share my email, I'd be happy to take individual questions. If you want to email me at sherry.davis@sdhc, School District Hillsborough County .k12.fl.us. Email me if you have specific questions about a specific student. I'll try to find a resource for you, or share some strategies if I can.
Awesome.
Happy to do it.
Yay. Thank you so much, Sherry. We really appreciate your passion and expertise. So I did put Sherry's email in the chat box. I'm going to paste, if you want in-service credit, click on this link that I posted underneath her. Oh, yeah.
Our closing word is hypo, right? Oh, okay. HYPO, hypo.
So you can complete this form with your opening and closing code and answer the questions on the form. You'll get an automatic email back with your in-service points. That serves as your certificate. Yes, ma'am. Sure was, Amanda. It was hyper, yes. Okay. Clever. Okay, guys.
All right. It was a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on.
Okay. A039431. I'm not sure what your name is, but it was, well, let me stop recording real quick and then I will give you the magic code.